time has come once again to discuss things.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentleman Fan Film Reviews. I am CK2, joining me today is...
The real Manos.
Indeed. Today we're talking about a Samurai Jack fan film. Manos, what is this fan film called?
This was called Sweet Thing, a Samurai Jack story.
Indeed. I know we've done a Samurai Jack fan film on this channel, on this show before. I can't remember if you were there for it, Manos, or if it was Rasco.
No, well, it may have been Rasco too, but I know we did one.
Okay.
I believe I was the one who suggested it too. So this is twice.
So you just mining that old Samurai Jack well.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's just interesting. Sorry, people, I was pulling it up if you heard a little bit of that. It's just interesting to me to, visit some of these properties. So there's a million Batman and Star Wars fan films, and it's kind of almost surprising sometimes that certain beloved properties don't have fan films, and it's kind of interesting to try to deduce why. And so, like, Samurai Jack is a really popular series, I feel. I mean, it did just get that revival a couple years ago for a proper conclusion, and yet there's not a ton of stuff out there as far as fan work, and it's I feel a lot to do with the trappings of the world. Star Wars is obviously like big futuristic kind of thing, but you can always like cheat and just go to some woods, because that's also a very Star Wars kind of setting. Whereas Samurai Jack, it's like there were a lot of fields and valleys and stuff, but it's mostly like big Blade Runner techno cities and whatnot.
Also, I think a challenge to a lot of fan filmmakers is the framing of shots and scenery, the way the animators did on that show. A lot of that stuff is really kind of difficult to replicate on a micro budget.
And I mean, especially because the strength of animation is it can be so incredibly stylized.
Yes.
And like, it's like, oh, this tree is just exactly where it needs to be in frame, and this person can like come up behind it and cut through it and all this stuff. We can time it all out perfectly, exactly the way we want to. Whereas when you're in live action, a lot of that control is just lost. I always think about that shot from the very beginning of Burton's Batman, where like you see Batman's silhouette shadow in like a doorway, or the light coming out of a doorway, and then like he turns around and does a cape flourish and goes back out the door, and like the shadow of that's all animated because they want it to be that stylized. So it's just interesting to see the way animation takes over like that. Mm-hmm. But so I don't know. I was curious what this was going to be. I should say I'm not the biggest Samurai Jack fan. What's the name of the guy that created it and Clone Wars?
Gwen. I keep messing up his name. I have to think about it every time I say it. Gwendy Tartakovsky, I think it is.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of his, to be honest.
Oh, really?
Like, I don't have any problem with what he does. It's just, it's very clearly not for me, because I tend to watch his stuff and I just get very bored. It's so interesting because on one level I can really respect and see the point of what he does with like these, long, silent stretches, these really atmospheric shots that linger. Like, part of me does kind of like it, but I can't keep focused on it, and I literally just get tired. Like it kind of puts me to sleep. And so it's going to be odd to talk about this fan film because this had, if not the same, a very similar effect on me. And So that's like, for me, I didn't particularly enjoy it, but reviewing it, I can say they were definitely going for his style, trying to mimic it in live action, and they definitely succeeded. So as a reviewer, I'm like, it was really well done.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference between reviewing something in a subjective manner versus objective. Because you're like taking into account like what style they were going for. People do like the style. The subjective is you specifically don't like the style. So you have to kind of factor that into your review.
So I don't know. It was interesting for me watching this because I was like, oh man, I'm getting like I'm liking parts of it, but other times I'm getting kind of bored. And then I'm just like, it got me just rethinking about Samurai Jack, which is a show I really haven't watched in, years since it was on, basically. And I was like, that's kind of how I always felt about Samurai Jack. It was like, I'd see an episode or so that I'd like, and when you're a kid, you'll watch anything, but I'd see an episode or two that I liked, but by and large, I just remember being kind of like bored, and I'd end up tuning it out and stuff. I think it's like just That's much action at a certain point. Action's always supposed to be like really exciting, but I think at a certain point there can be too much of it and it just gets kind of boring. And that's kind of how I tend to feel about some of Samurai Jack. Definitely.
Did you feel that way
about the Clone Wars?
Yeah, I was just about to ask if you felt that way about his Clone Wars series.
Yeah.
And he was doing a lot of experimentation with Samurai Jack, which he later went all in on the Clone Wars stuff. Is experimentation with not just simply action, although we do see that because the Cartoon Network, a lot of fans, I guess, overlook the fact that Samurai Jack kind of fell into that. But it was a Cartoon Network show. It was a cartoon show. It came out of like Dexter's Laboratory and Powerpuff Girls, which were Cartoon Network had been adding more and more like action to their comedy shows to the point where that is a genre in Cartoon Network's library. The Dexter's Lab kind of became that, but Powerpuff Girls definitely did, and Samurai Jack, which is still a humor show, but it leans more on the action side. And what he was doing was he was experimenting with what you can do with action in series. And also, I want to say with pacing, too. I mean, if you go back and watch some episodes, there are just long stretches where there's little to no dialogue. And they're allowing the visuals to tell the story as best they can. This does both, actually. We get to see two examples of how he would tell stories. Because we have this robot assassin from a coup who had this experiment done on him. They decided to toy with one of the assassins, put emotions in there, and it made him actually a better assassin. And at the same time, it made him not want to be an assassin. Therefore, he retired. And we do two things. We have the film noir kind of style where it's narration all the way, through. Like every moment is being narrated by him. And then we get the plot twist where he is sent after Jack. And then it goes completely silent for a while with that because, this director kind of mimicking the style lets the visuals, tell the story from there on because we really don't need much at that point.
Yeah, totally.
And also, I like the fact. Oh, I'm sorry. One more thing, and then also the fact that this, like a lot of episodes on Samurai Jack, wasn't really about Samurai Jack. It was like about the characters that have been affected by him and how they interact with him. And I thought that was a cool choice for this one to kind of be centered on a different character.
Yeah, no, totally. I was like kind of into it at different points. I really came and went on this one, getting into some things and kind of losing interest in others. It's like it has me for a little bit when he's walking around the warehouse looking for Jack, and it's just this it's a very moody, it's a very atmospheric setting. I think they did a really good job on, I'm not sure if it's 100% location scouting or how much of it's green screen work. It looks like it was maybe a mix of both. But just, it does have this really moody atmospheric thing. But then it goes on for like 4 minutes, and I'm just done with it. And that's something that, like, I don't know, it's weird for me because I'm a Kubrick fan, and he's does that shit in spades, right?
Yeah, I was meaning to bring that up, actually.
Yeah.
You are a Kubrick fan, and he, like, I mean, pacing is almost pornography to him, where it's like, no, we're gonna stretch this shit out, and you're gonna look at it.
No, exactly. And I don't know, it's usually my defense for Kubrick is, well, the shot composition is always so beautiful, it's almost like you're looking at a painting. And usually other things that I find boring don't have that crutch to lean on. This did, though. This, like, the shot compositions were really cool, really nice angles. You mentioned the framing. One thing that Samurai Jack did a lot was play with the aspect ratio. Like, it was a show that was broadcast in 4:3, but occasionally it would go to a 16:9 aspect ratio, or like cut the screen up into 3 panels, and so I guess we got to get Tom King and the Samurai Jack guy to do a cartoon together, because King would be all over that shit. But this fan film did it, though. This fan film played with the aspect ratio and played with the framing of the screen a lot, and so all that stuff's really cool. Something about it just, I can't maintain an interest in on a personal level, but like I'm able to recognize the work, recognize the passion and the definite nod of the head, the intention of really trying to make this not just a Samurai Jack fan film, but like a fan film that is trying to look and feel and be Samurai Jack, which I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah. And it uses all the green screen and effects very well. There are times where, if you had told me Robert Rodriguez made this in 2005, I would have believed you.
Yeah.
Because it definitely has that experimentation feel to it. And this is all about what both of those creators like to do. And also, if you don't mind getting into the story a bit, I really do like. Let's see, we get the history and backstory of this robot assassin, and then we kind of turn it into a kind of a John Wick story. Essentially.
I didn't think of it that way. You're right.
Yeah, and this guy who developed feelings and used it to be a good killer because, well, he would dodge bullets because he had feelings, which is an interesting thing because you usually hear about that kind of shit with in stories like this, where robots are aliens with feelings and they become really bad at what they do, and it made him kind of better at what he did because he had feelings, and then he retired once he kind of like fell in love with that dog, and then, of course, retiring, leaving the thing, and then Aku takes the dog because he knows he pulls the kidnap thing. And I love that joke. I love that bit where he's holding the dog up to the phone.
And at that point, like, it didn't even look like a fully CG Aku anymore. It looks like they did some practical makeup or like costuming and stuff.
Exactly.
Which really got a kick out of me. One thing I found really interesting about the story is again, Samurai Jack just had over-the-top action to just ridiculous degrees. And, Jack would just slaughter armies of robots casually. And so it was kind of cool to see in this that you've got, like, these armies of robots that our main assassin character is stumbling upon as he's hunting for Jack. And I like the idea that the emotions thing are what makes him good at being an assassin. And what is kind of separating him from the armies of robots that Jack takes out is they just charge headlong into battle. They can't care whether they live or die, and so Jack's able to just completely slice through all of them. Whereas this guy, because he's fighting for himself in part as well as for his dog, he's more careful, he's more tactile, and so Jack's not able to just, bum rush him like he does with all the other robots. So I thought that was a really cool way to integrate it. Let me ask you. Go ahead.
Oh no! I was just gonna say, correct. It also changes the tone of the action in a way, instead of like a slam bam, action fest like the opening shots were. This had a bit more tension to it, of these two killers stalking each other in this like robot factory, which I thought was pretty clever. Mm-hmm. Anyway, what were you about to ask me?
How did you feel about the way this ended? Because I think that was a very unique ending for a Samurai Jack story.
I thought that was... it was kind of tragic in a way, where we're not really even given like a resolution to what happens to his dog. And he dies trying to save his dog. Knowing Aku, I don't know what Aku would do. Like, either just casually kill the dog, or not care, or let it go, or adopt it. Anything's kind of possible with Aku. So we have no resolution with that. And, the only thing we have as a hint is like, him telling Jack to take care of, not even take care of it, like, saying something about Lulu, and Jack notices it. Because that's really one of the more interesting things, is Jack has no idea. This is just another robot that came after him and then said that on his dying breath, which would, I imagine, be unusual for Jack, because that's not something he'd be used to these things uttering.
Yeah. And it's just, I thought that was a really interesting place to leave stuff, because from what I recall, there were episodes of Samurai Jack where, like, he was painted as the villain, and then, like, by the end of the episode, he'd win the people over to his side, and then they'd go after Aku together or some shit. Whereas this, it's just, you get so into this robot assassin's head, and you really start to feel for him, and he's got, like, the righteous mission. And then he goes up against Jack, and it's this really, really intense, scuffle where he's just trying to shoot every which direction, and he's not hitting anything. And you realize just how incredibly outclassed he is by Jack. And then you start to get really worried that, our main character's the one in trouble, even though we've done all this to build him up as this, like, really formidable, really intense threat to Jack, and he's just completely, like, ghosted from the second he steps in that factory. Basically, he's completely outmatched, and it all comes down to Jack just getting a chance to get behind him and taking him out. That was so shocking, and Jack just does it like you would with any other robot, and I was like, wow, they would never have produced this cartoon. They never would have let that be the ending to a Samurai Jack episode.
Maybe season 5.
Oh, yeah, I guess I haven't seen that, so that's fair.
It's season 5 is much more adult. But it's just, it's so ambiguous the way it ends. And I love the fact that, he is... I think I already alluded to this, but our hero doesn't know what's going on, so it's another robot trying to kill him. He doesn't get to see what we see as far as, like, motivations, and we'd be rooting for him. It's like, and that's such an interesting place to put, the hero and the villain and us as the audience, where I should be technically rooting for Jack, because there's really no reason. But it's, I really like the twisting in the writing here.
Same. I was pretty impressed by that. I think my biggest criticism of this thing that isn't just from a personal perspective is just the casting of Jack. I feel that was a bit of a misstep. I'm pretty sure Jack's just being played by the same guy who's, if not voicing if not underneath, is also voicing the robot assassin. I feel like this is very evidently like probably a two-man project for the majority of it. Just, one guy with the camera, one guy in the suit or something. But I do feel like it was a bit of a mistake to, go with. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's just someone who presents white, but going with a white guy as Jack, I thought was a bit of a misstep.
I agree. I mean, I thought of it. Although, to be honest, I am a little less harsh on fan fiction. Not fan fiction.
Same.
Fan film creator. It is the same. But fan filmmakers than I am like a studio, because studios have like access to casting where fan filmmakers don't. So I'm
I was saying same as in I agree with you. I give it much more leeway with like these fan projects and stuff. It's again, I always say this when we talk about casting and acting in fan films is you get who you can get who can do it. Because Correct. It is such a low budget project. Even when they have money behind them, they're low budget projects. But it's just something that it stands out. It's noticed. To be fair to them, I think they do a really good job of taking so much of the focus off Jack that it doesn't quite matter.
Correct, and he's in shadow a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah, see, the thing is, I'm kind of forgiving when it comes to fan filmmakers when they don't cast, appropriate. I'm forgiving, and I'm also, when they do cast appropriate, I'm like, yeah, good job. Good work. Yeah. So, I don't know. That's kind of my feelings on it. But yeah, if this was done by a studio, I'd go, fuck that. Mm-hmm. Like, you made a mistake.
I mean, Samurai Jack, Scarlett Johansson, right?
Man, I gotta tell you, I really like Scarlett Johansson, but she has fucked herself with that whole thing. She really defended really hard on playing that role, and I don't think she did herself any favors. Yeah. And then it came. I think she played also a transgender. Well, she was gonna play a transgender woman, and she fought like that too for a second until everyone was like, no.
Scarlett.
And she backed off. I know.
Stop.
It's
I will play any tree I want to, and then just all the fucking images. Like my favorite meme reaction that was someone took a clip from Endgame and just posted there. It's like, God, the visual effects here are so impressive. Scarlett Johansson's on screen with herself.
Oh, I know. It's like,
it's just Black Widow standing next to a tree.
No, it's like, I love you, Scarlett. Don't make me not like you. But I mean, anyway, I do feel like maybe she I don't know. I was gonna say maybe she comes from that old school of thinking and casting, but it's like, no, she's like younger than me. That's bullshit.
Right. Anyway, let's get off Scarlett Johansson. It's funny to talk about. Anyway,
it is.
So one of the other things about this fan film that I want to talk about is some of the effects integration, because we talked a little bit about the chroma key and stuff. I was also like pretty impressed with the use of I guess I'll just call them post effects that are like all visual effects added after the fact. Like I'm going to say like 97% sure that all of his eyelid movements are added in post, which is really effective because it communicates a lot of emotion and a lot of like just character in the way the eyes will squint and move occasionally.
Yeah.
The other stuff that I thought was really well done and well placed was like, the muzzle flashes off the guns. I felt really did feel like it'd be something out of Samurai Jack. Also with just like the blood splatter in white for the black and white flashback sections, I thought was really cool. And yeah, you mentioned Robert Rodriguez earlier. That's straight out of Sin City. So I thought all that stuff was really, really cool to see, and it worked really well. It was well integrated, well placed. I think one of the only effects that was a little shakier was the CGI cars driving around on real streets. I thought that one was a bit off, and I think the reasoning why it bugged me so much was there's so much in this that's just pure CGI cityscapes, for shots that they couldn't get in real life, that whenever it would go to like a real city street in just the modern day and it'd have like this weird sci-fi stylized car kind of come around the corner and drive really fast, I just thought it was such a weird choice, because I'm just like, well, you already clearly had a CGI city. Why didn't you just do that shot 100% CGI so it didn't look as jarring? That was one thing that stood out to me.
Yeah, it looks to be a combination of convenience and also style choice.
Yeah, I guess you could make that argument. I just didn't really agree with it personally. I guess I thought it was maybe I don't want to say a poor choice, but not a very effective choice. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
We need to go a little bit longer on this one, but not much. You got anything else you can think to talk about? Bring up?
Let's see. There wasn't too much humor, which is why I really appreciate that whole bit with Aku putting the dog on the phone. That's still like the funniest damn thing. Has the dog like hold up to it, so it can bark. I mean, that's such an Aku thing for him to do.
Yeah.
Which that really did strike me as very funny. There are, I can't remember. I know I've seen this model of robot in the show, and I really you mentioned like the eye squints. I thought were really nice. Like there are moments where, like when he's shooting, he like closed one eye, which were nice little small touches on that. I just really dug this. I don't know if I have any more to say, because the story is it's one of those kind of stories I really like, where basically what happens is kind of simple. But like, the context and the story and the emotion of the characters makes this more complex, especially when you think of it in the context of good versus evil in relation to the rest of the show. Because, the whole vantage point has changed on us. So, yeah, I mean, it's the kind of writing I like quite a bit.
I think that's a good place to leave off on. We'll just go ahead and go on to ratings. I guess I'll go first. Again, I feel like I was maybe coming off as really harsh on this, which, again, I didn't mean to. Just because I didn't get a ton of enjoyment out of it personally doesn't mean that there's not stuff that's really well done here and done, and choices are very clearly made for very specific reasons. So, all that being said, I'm going to give this 4 out of 5 samurais! That's my best Aku.
Let's see. What was he? Didn't he do an episode where he ordered a pizza or something?
I don't know. Aku, like, I remember one clip that got posted around a lot was like Aku confronting Jack, and it's like, alright, here's how everything's going to go. You're going to strike me with the sword, and I'm going to shapeshift and fly away to the horizon and say, we'll meet again, samurai! And then exactly that happens, and he's like, we'll meet again, samurai! And then he comes back and he's like, see, told you.
Yeah, I think there's one where I forgot what the context is, but he's on the phone, and it's when it's there in a half hour, it's free kind of thing really exploded, and he was like saying something like that. So if it's not here in half hour, it's free. Excellent.
Aku's the fucking overlord of the entire world, but he still has to pay for pizza.
Yeah,
Is that how that works?
Yeah, that's a big deal for him. Like, he'll pay if they make it a dime. I should do that over the phone next time I order pizza, which might ensure that I won't get the pizza. It's like,
my God.
They sent the cops instead of pizza. What's going on?
What will you rate this fan film, Manos?
I really enjoyed this. I was pleasantly surprised, and I really enjoyed the writing and the fact that this really did invoke the style and the story telling of the show. So yeah, I'm gonna give this 5 out of 5 doggies.
Nice. Alrighty. We're getting close. Oh, let me actually make sure of that. I didn't think. Okay, good. We got one more Thursday before Horror Month. So we're getting close to Horror Month, and I was thinking about maybe putting this in there, but I think it'd make a good transition, because it's not exactly like a horror thing, but it's very fallish. So we're going to talk about Sonic and Harvest Time Hazard by Belena Productions. They did that the Sonic Family Christmas special we reviewed last year. So this should be fun. Everyone, thanks very much for watching. See you next time. Until then, I'm the Philosopher.
And I'm the Realist.
And we are your Geeky Gentlemen. And we will be discussing things. R.I.P. Headphone users.